Hello from Mexico and welcome back to our channel. So today in this video, I'm going to share my experience with obtaining dual citizenship, or more specifically a CRBA, consular report of birth abroad, for two of my children, the two that were born here in Mexico. This is for everybody who has questions about that. Full disclosure, I am not an expert, nor am I an attorney, nor am I associated with the US government. This is just my experience and how I did the process. You will need to absolutely 100% look into this for yourself and make sure that it fits your specific situation, because everybody's situation is different. So if you like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe. Let's talk about a CRBA, the process, and our experience obtaining it for two of our children who were born here in Mexico. First things first, what is a CRBA? So a CRBA is a consular report of birth abroad. It's essentially a birth certificate. It's for individuals who are born outside of the United States and either both or one of their parents are United States citizens. We have three children. Our first child, Diego, our oldest, was born in the United States, but Dominic and Damon were both born here in Mexico. All three of our children are now dual citizens. I get asked a lot why I would have my children here in Mexico. Why wouldn't I take them back to the States? Does that affect their citizenship? And a lot of people are confused on how it works. The first thing I can tell you, and I cannot stress this enough, is that it is not a guarantee and it is not automatic. You do have to go through a process for your child if they are born outside of the United States, but it's not automatic. So they aren't, once they're born, they're not just automatically given it. You have to go through a process with the embassy in the country where you gave birth. In my case, that's Mexico. And you do have to be approved. They have to be approved for their CRBA. Now, I'm going to put some stuff up on the screen for you guys. I'm also including all of the links that you'll need in the description below. But I'm going to go through a couple different things, and I do have it written down so I can make sure that I could cover everything. Everybody's situation is different. So again, please, if you're going through this process, make sure that you go over everything that's included in the links below, all of the information that's available to you through the government websites, and make sure that you meet the requirements and that you know what the requirements are given your specific situation. One of the things that is very important that I think a lot of people overlook is the requirement of residency. So you do have to be physically present in the United States for at least 5 years prior to the child's birth. Now, in our specific case, I am a United States citizen. However, my husband, my children's father, is a citizen of Mexico. He does not have any citizenship or residency in the United States. So for us, I had to prove that I was physically present in the United States 5 years, at least 5 years prior to both of my children's births. And then at least 2 of those years was after the age of 14. And then I had to provide documentary evidence of that. And I'll go over a little bit more of what that means. But I do want to point out 2 other things with the residency requirement, the requirement of residency. It can be prior to becoming a US citizen, and it doesn't need to be continuous. First step in this process is going to be making sure that your child qualifies for this. This is a process that you do prior to them turning age 18. So if they are over the age of 18, that's a whole separate thing. I don't know about that, so you'll have to look that up for your individual situation. But they do have to be under the age of 18 when you go through this process. The second step is when you go to this website that you guys can see on the screen, it's going to redirect you to make an account at login.gov. That's where you're going to track everything, because you can do this application online. When I went through this process with Dominic 5 years ago, because Dominic's now 5, when I went through this process 5 years ago, you couldn't do the application online. You had to fill it out on paper and take it with you. The documentation was a little bit different. I feel like they asked for a lot more when I went through it the first time. But like I said, they're changing the process now. They're making it a little bit more streamlined, and so you can do most of this on your computer basically before you go to your interview. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to complete a form and you're going to upload documents. I'm going to walk you through the documents that I had to provide. The first thing that's the most important is the hospital birth certificate. This is a piece of paper that you get at the hospital where you give birth in the country that you give birth in. Here in Mexico, they give you, it's a hospital birth certificate. It's on a piece of paper. Dominic's had an image of his foot and my fingerprint. Damon's did not. But this is the paper that you take with you when you do the civil registry here in Mexico. I make a couple copies so that I can have them with me. So for us, because our children are citizens of both Mexico and the United States, the first thing we did was went to the civil registry here in Mexico and obtained both of our children's birth certificates right after their birth. In order to do that, you have to give them the hospital birth certificate. However, you can make a copy of it and you'll use the copy for their CRBA. So make a copy of it. If you didn't make a copy of it, or you're a couple years, after this and things like that, you can go back to the civil registry and you can ask for a true copy and they'll give you a true copy of it and you can use that for the CRBA. So if you didn't get a copy of it, don't worry, but you can absolutely still obtain one, but you will need it for this process. The next thing you have to provide is the information of the parents and their identification. In my case, I provided all of the information that you see here, and then I provided 2 forms of ID, my driver's license for the US and my passport. For Fidel, because he is not a citizen of the United States, because he's a citizen of Mexico, what I provided for him was the information that you see here and his INE, or his government ID here in Mexico. Next section is you're going to provide any marriage information. You do answer a question of if you're married at the time. If you're not, things might differ a little. I don't know that part because I've been married for both of these, or we were married prior to both of our children's birth. So this is where I uploaded our marriage certificate. And if you have previously been married and divorced, you do need to provide a divorce decree for each of the marriages that you've had prior to the marriage of the marriage to your current spouse. What you're going to provide is evidence of physical presence in the United States. There's a variety of different things that you can use to provide this. I chose what was easiest for me, so I provided both my college transcripts for my MBA, and then I also provided my elementary and high school transcripts. That showed that I was in the US for at least 5 years prior to the birth of Damon in this case, and Dominic. You can also use things like your taxes, but they have to be accompanied by W-2s. There's a variety of different things. It'll give you an entire list and you can look into it on the websites that are linked below. But for me, the college transcript was the easiest. Now, you cannot just provide a diploma. It has to be an actual transcript if you are using any schooling. But by providing my elementary and college transcripts, I was able to show that I was present in the United States for at least 5 years, and that at least two of those years was after the age of 14. After that, you're going to add your contact info and then also a mailing address. They're not going to mail this to the mailing address that you put on here, at least not in my experience for here in Mexico. At the end of the appointment, if you're approved, you fill out documentation and go through a process to have it sent to a DHL where you pick it up. After you've completed this form, you're also going to pay the fee. In this case, for the CRBA, it is $100. You aren't going to print off the application, but you are going to print off your proof of payment or your receipt of payment, because you will need that once you get to the embassy before they'll even let you into the US Embassy. The next step after you pay that is to make an appointment, because you will need to go to the US Embassy to do an interview for your child, and both parents need to attend that. Both parents can attend. There are other requirements and things that you can provide in order to show why the other parent can attend. Here in Mexico, there are only a couple embassy locations that can process a CRB, one of them being Mexico City, which is the closest to us. So that's where we processed both of our children's. You will need to look on the website though, find the one that's closest to you, and make sure that you verify that you can complete the CRBA through them. But you're going to make an appointment. Now it depends on, honestly, their availability. I didn't have issues with either of our children as far as like the appointments being really far out. So I was able to make an appointment pretty quickly. And then we traveled to Mexico, as you saw in the last video, and completed the interview to complete the process and get an approval. The next thing that you can do in conjunction with getting the CRBA is you can also apply for their passport. You can get their first passport in this exact same appointment so that you don't have to do 2 trips. You cannot, however, get their social security number. That does have to be separate. And you can do that once you receive their CRBA in the mail. But you do have to do that separate because it's with a different government agency. For the passport, all you're going to do is complete the passport form, make sure that you get them a passport photo, and you're going to pay the fee. Then you're going to print that information and the form off and just take it with you to your interview. And then the last step in this is to attend the actual interview. So I wanted to give you guys kind of an idea of what our experience was with both of our boys' interviews. So with Dominic's interview, like I said, his was a little bit different because it was 5 years ago. And I feel like the requirements were a little bit different because I wasn't able to upload any of this online. I had to take it all with me. When I went to Dominic's, I was required to bring a photo of Fidel and I around the time of conception. I was also advised to bring ultrasounds, any pictures of me pregnant during my pregnancy that were date and time stamped. And then I took my taxes and W-2s. I took my college transcript. I took my elementary high school transcripts. I took our marriage license, our birth certificates. I took all of the documentation and not just what I was uploaded. And honestly, I would recommend taking as much as you can. With Damon's appointment, even though they didn't ask for it, I still took some of the ultrasounds. I took some pictures that were taken while I was pregnant. I took those things just in case, because here's the thing with the interview. You fill all this out but they can always ask for additional information. They are essentially making sure that the child that you are applying for is your child. You can obtain this for children that are adopted as well, but that's a separate process. If you had IVF, that's also kind of it requires different documentation. So like I said, make sure that you know what's required for your specific situation. But this time I wasn't required to bring all of the things that I took with Dominic's, but I took them just in case, because I knew that they could still ask for it. They could still ask for it in this interview. When we went to the interview, we were asked primarily how Fidel and I met. I remember being asked how long I had been in Mexico, why I was in Mexico, if I had any additional family ties in Mexico besides my husband and my children. They asked dates surrounding my college, like from what date to what date did I attend college? What year to what year? What year to what year did I attend high school and elementary school? Essentially, they were just verifying it and asking questions related to that. Once they go through all of that, they will tell you right there that whether or not your child's approved. You do have to swear to a statement as well, that all the information that you're giving is accurate and true. And then they'll tell you whether or not you're approved for it. Once you're approved for it, they send the document, like I said, through DHL, and that arrives in about 4 weeks. Now, this is a lot of information, but like I said, I'm not an expert on this. This is just my experience, having done this twice now in Mexico. You can see the video. I'll make sure that it's linked to this video as well. You can see the video of us actually going to the appointment and things like that. Just a couple notes. There's a lot of security in at the embassy in Mexico City. When you go in, you will have to give them your cell phone or any electronic devices. They'll keep those until after your interview. You get them back once you're done with whatever you're doing at the embassy. But there's a lot of different security things that you have to go through. When you first get there, though, and you initially are outside, they will check through your documentation to make sure that you have everything that you need. It might seem like an intimidating process, but it honestly is not an intimidating process, but it is something that you have to be prepared for. So if you are having a baby here in Mexico, my advice to you is to do the research while you're pregnant. Try and get all of your documentation together prior to giving birth. For me, that made it a lot easier with Dominic. And then I, knew more of what to expect with Damon. But if you do it while you're pregnant, I just feel like you give yourself a little bit more time to get prepared for it and you don't feel rushed or panicked afterwards. And technically you do have until they're 18 to obtain this. We have gotten ours done pretty quickly because I just like to get it done and out of the way. But it is, like I said, not an intimidating process, just something that you definitely want to be prepared for. The other thing is, as I stated in the beginning of this video, it is not automatic. You do have to go through this process. Even if it is not a super difficult process, you still have to go through this process to register your child. For me, the reason that I had both, well, our two younger children here in Mexico is because I wanted Fidel, my husband, their dad, to be at their birth. He was there for the birth of our first son, Diego, in the United States. Being there for the birth is something that is really important for Fidel, and it's really important for me. And if I returned to the US, he wouldn't have been able to do that. He would have missed the last part of my pregnancy. He would have missed the birth itself, and then he would have missed, the first little bit of their lives. And to me, that didn't work for us. It works for others, but it didn't work for us. And so that's why I had our two children here. So I hope that this helps those of you out there that are looking into this process or getting ready to do this process. I hope that this information helps make it a little bit easier. Like I said, it was a good experience for us. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below, or you guys can always email me. The email I'm going to also put in the description, but it's typically in all of the descriptions of our videos. You guys can email us for a variety of different things. I'm not an expert, but I am here to help. And if you want to get a hold of me, or if you have questions, that's the best way to do it. But as always, thank you guys so much for being here. We hope that you're enjoying Vlogmas, and we will see you guys tomorrow on the next vlog. Bye, guys.